This is ABC 7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohn, and welcome to ABC 7 at 7. Topping our news tonight, a day of comings and goings. Marco Rubio, who once vowed not to seek re-election to the U.S. Senate, is in, and most of the Republicans vying to replace him are out. Businessman Todd Wilcox is the latest to drop out and is now backing Marco Rubio 2 days after saying he would stay in the race. Despite Rubio's decision, that leaves Manatee's own Carlos Barouf in the GOP primary against Rubio. On Wednesday, 2 days before the deadline to get on the ballot, Rubio announced he changed his mind. The Republican primary winner will face either Patrick Murphy or Alan Grayson in November. It is a political earthquake in Europe and rocking the stock market here at home. The British have voted to leave the European Union. It will take at least 2 years for the United Kingdom to sort out its exit from the EU. The UK will become the first country to leave the 28-country bloc. British Prime Minister David Cameron, who opposed the exit, is pledging to step down.
This is not a decision I've taken lightly. But I do believe it's in the national interest to have a period of stability and then the new leadership required. There is no need for a precise timetable today, but in my view, we should aim to have a new Prime Minister in place by the start of the Conservative Party conference in October.
Scotland has already hinted it may call its own call for independence so it can join the EU. Now, world markets are in a tailspin. The news battered the British pound by more than 11% and could impact investors here in the U.S. 401k investments and retirement savings could be affected, especially for those who plan to retire in the immediate future. In what the U.S. Department of Justice described as an unprecedented nationwide sweep, more than 100 people in Florida have been charged with crimes related to Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Criminal and civil charges were filed against over 300 people across the country, including 100 here in Florida. Attorney General Pam Bondi's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit assisted with the takedown.
We want to protect the integrity of these programs as well as protect the taxpayers who fund them. When people are ripping off these entitlement programs, they're essentially ripping off you and I, and we're not going to stand for it.
The Department of Justice says the allegations in Florida involve fraud schemes totaling about $220 million, including pharmacy fraud and false billings for home health care and mental health services. More bad news for Major League Football. The startup Professional Football League, the parent company out of Lakewood Ranch, is seeking $15,000 in damages from the league for missing 4 months of rent on its headquarters. The lawsuit says the Major League Football was given notice of default and is now the landlord is asking a judge to approve foreclosure. This comes after losing a major investor and canceling the inaugural season in March.
I would have loved to see it. It gives opportunity for many other athletes to continue playing and possibly getting an opportunity for a higher level of play.
Many are wondering if this could be lights out for good. The developer is also demanding an accelerated rent of missed payments and the full year's rent next year that exceeds $280,000. And Bob joins us now with news that we have some severe storms out there.
Yeah, we had some severe weather warnings already and significant weather advisories, heavy rainfall, Ellen, also lots of lightning strikes and some small hail still occurring now. That East Coast breeze kind of interacting with the West Coast right now and creating some big storms for our area. Get a look at the Lakewood Ranch webcam review over the last couple of hours. You can start to see the clouds increasing and the storms moving in that direction. We'll go and switch it over to radar and show you that activity now. Fairly significant in South Sarasota and into western Charlotte County at this hour, starting to build into Manatee County. Get a look at what's been going on. The rain now heavy toward Inglewood, also out toward Venice. Get ready some showers and storms there. It's starting to lessen somewhat in Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda, but this storm in particular producing quite a few lightning strikes, although those have come down a little bit, 105 just in the last 5 minutes, and some small hail possible with this cell. The 3D picture and slice of it indicating the storm tops up to 50 to 60,000 feet, and whenever you get that, there is a good possibility of some small hail, and we're also seeing another cell developing along State Road 64 into Manatee County, producing quite a bit of lightning strikes with that one. near Bethany, and that is pushing off to the west at 15 miles an hour. And you can see more storms are anticipated down the road through the night. Rainfall estimates in just the last 3 hours near Northport, 2.2 inches, Punta Gorda, and near Port Charlotte, just over 1.5 inches. So that rainfall rate is significant now moving through Inglewood at this point. The high today was 91 degrees. And for boaters, things look to be pretty good for boating over the weekend. It's going to be busy out there, and it should be pretty good weather for much of the morning and early afternoon. Then things start to change late in the day.
A lot of rain clouds on your map there.
Absolutely. Big storms around.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bob. And still to come, we'll discuss the state of the U.S. Senate race, the day of the state filing deadline, what Marco Rubio's candidacy means for the campaign. We'll be back with our roundtable discussion.
ABC 7 News at 7, weeknights.
We've been slow smoking over oak for more than 45 years. And while sticking to tried and true traditions is kind of our thing, it doesn't hurt to throw something new in the smoker every now and then. Come get some slow smoked chicken wings at Sonny's Barbecue. Order them as an appetizer or as part of a combo with pork, baby back ribs, or both, starting at $10.99. Sonny's Barbecue, local pitmasters since '68.
This Sarasota Powerboat Grand Prix Minute is brought to you by Florida Leather Gallery.
Your support during the Grand Prix Festival makes a difference. Community Haven for Adults and Children with Disabilities is one of 5 area nonprofit agencies receiving support from Suncoast Charities for Children and the Suncoast Foundation. Thanks to a recent grant, a new roof was installed on their adult training facility. Special project funding like this ensures program and service money goes directly to clients who need it the most.
Florida Leather Gallery is celebrating the 4th of July with spectacular savings. Take 33% off hundreds of styles. Experience freedom of choice with a wide and wonderful assortment of leathers. Freedom from worry with our impressive collection of protected leathers. And freedom from guilt as we proudly offer the lowest price guaranteed. Plus, free delivery. It's all happening right now. Come celebrate with our Lexperts at our 6 Florida Leather Galleries.
Welcome back, and joining us tonight is Frank Alcock, a candidate in the U.S. Florida Senate race, and he is also a political science professor at New College of Florida. Rod Thompson, the president of the Sarasota Republican Club, and political analyst Jeffrey Ornstein. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming up. So it's been a kind of a slow week in Florida politics.
Indeed.
Marco Rubio is really doing what he said earlier he would not do. He is going to be running for re-election. He says that he is doing this after the Orlando shootings, and that it is really important for him to have a voice in terms of what goes on in the U.S. Senate. He has said a number of things over the last couple of days. Let's talk about a little bit after we watch Rubio saying the challenge ahead of him running on the ticket where Donald Trump is the Republican nominee.
And I most certainly hope it's not her. You're still going to have a U.S. Senate. And if the majority of the senators in the Senate are Democrats, and Hillary Clinton, God forbid, is elected president, she is going to get a blank check. The last time we had that situation was 2008 to 2010, and it produced Obamacare and Dodd-Frank and the stimulus and all sorts of other damage to this country. And so I have a chance to make a difference in that regard.
He is running in quite a different atmosphere than he did when he first ran for election 6 years ago. It was a three-way race then, Charlie Crist running as an independent. Now it is going to be a Republican versus a Democrat in the presidential year where Democratic turnout is at its peak. Rod, you know, I know that you're going to be supporting Rubio, but is this a harder race for him in your opinion?
It could be. It could be. And the reason why I say it could be is because of what you stated there. It's a presidential election. It's always harder to run as a Republican in Florida during a presidential year statewide because the turnout's higher on the Democrat side in a presidential election year than it is in an off year. When he was first elected, it was an off year. So in that respect, it could be harder. However, I think that looking at his opponents on the Democrat side, I think Alan Grayson probably I can't see the Democrats nominating him, although I would love that.
We're gonna be taking a look at that race in a couple minutes. But
He's not
Grace,
an opponent in the primary. Last time I checked, Carlos Baruf.
we're going to get to that also in a moment. But you know, on the Democratic side, Grayson is really only a couple of points behind Patrick Murphy.
Yeah.
Won in the last poll I saw.
Right.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Do you take him at his word that his decision was based upon the need for him in the Senate in the wake of the Orlando shooting, or is it something that was reported in the New York Times that he told colleagues and advisors that he would like to run for president again in either 2020 or 2024, but he became increasingly came to think that doing so by being a private sector or a private citizen would be just too difficult?
Oh, well, at the risk of straddling the fence, I would guess it's both. He had a lot of pressure on him from the Republican establishment to run again now, because without Rubio in this race, I think that this looked very difficult as a seat for the Republicans to keep. With Rubio, that flips it to where it's a more likely keep than a more likely loss before him. So he had pressure, just like Paul Ryan had pressure to become Speaker. He had a lot of people telling him, for the good of the party, for the good of the country, you have to do this, you have to do this. Now, the fact that that might dovetail into future presidential plans running from the Senate as opposed to a big-time lawyer or something, that probably makes sense too. Rubio's no dummy.
But it's been no secret that Rubio wanted to run for president for years now, and the knock against him during the Florida presidential primary was that he was somehow disconnected from his constituency here in Florida. We talked to some Republican mayors who had never met him, and
He was
so
disconnected from a lot of people. I don't think it's a mystery. I find it hard to believe that Marco Rubio views serving in the United States Senate as an honor. It's more of a chore for him. I think he is, he has high aspirations, he has higher goals, and I think that he thinks the next opportunity that it comes up, he's better placed right back in the Senate. But I don't think he's excited to go back there.
in either case, as we're about to see, he does believe that this is going to be a harder race than it was last time.
There's no question about that.
I'm going to work hard to be reelected, and if it works out, I'll do it with honor. I'll do it with a lot of hard work and with enthusiasm, and that's the direction I think it will end up. And if it doesn't, my kids will still love me, and so will my wife, and we'll go back and continue to live our lives in the greatest country in the world. But we're going to win.
Jeffrey, what's your take?
Well, my take is that I agree with Rod, by the way, that there had to have been heavy Republican national pressure on him. But he's always been a very ambitious politician, and he's made no bones about the fact that he has presidential ambitions. When he was in the Florida House of Representatives, he was already talking about running for the U.S. Congress. And as soon as he got in the U.S. Congress, before his term was 2/3 up, he was already a candidate for president. So
one more area I want to get to before our first break is the fact that, hey, most of the Republican field has dropped out, but not our own Carlos Baruf. Right. He is staying in this race, and he is painting himself as the outsider and the Rubio, the creature of Washington. Here is what Mr. Baruf had to say.
The limelight. And it has nothing to do with what's good for Florida citizens, and all to do with his future and what is his best interest.
Rod, what's your take here in terms of Mr. Baruf's position right now? Does he have much of a chance?
In the primary, I just don't think he probably does. However, with Todd Wilcox just dropping out this afternoon, who was the other, the other outsider businessman in it. So it's just a two-person race, and one, he can paint Rubio as an insider who does what Washington says, has higher aspirations, etc. So he can do that. But for Carlos, I think, and I have not talked to him, but for Carlos, I think this is also an opportunity to really show who he is statewide and create some of that name recognition, where even if he loses in the primary, he has now elevated his stature and his name around the state of Florida.
We're going to continue this conversation, but before we do so, we'll be back in just a moment.
Is your old garage door stuck or broken? Would a new one give you a lift? Let Precision Door Overhead Garage Door Service of Sarasota come to the rescue with prompt and affordable repair service. Replacement doors come with an array of styles and colors, and they are rated to meet and exceed Florida standards. From estimates to installation, your satisfaction is our priority. If you're not 100% satisfied with any product, service, or installation, we will make it right, because Precision Door Service is a name you can trust.
Attention, this is an important message for anyone who had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to their heart or lungs. Did your IVC filter move, break, or cause organ damage? The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, even death. If you or a loved one suffered serious complications, call IVC Filter Helpline now. You may be entitled to compensation. IVC filters are designed to prevent blood clots. If your IVC filter moved or broke and you suffered heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, or if a loved one died as a result, call IVC Filter Helpline today. Our network of experienced attorneys is ready to fight for you. You'll pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call today for a free confidential consultation. Don't fight this alone. Call IVC Filter Helpline now.
Please call 800-897-6764. That is 800-897-6764.
They're coming from Tampa, Fort Myers, even Orlando. They're coming from everywhere to Sarasota Ford, because Sarasota Ford guarantees you our lowest price on every new Ford every day. Save on America's best-selling truck 39 years running, the Ford F-150, Fusions, Escapes, over 800 vehicles on-site or online, all on sale. Buy with 0% for 60 months. And now, get up to $2,000 trade assistance. That's why they're coming from everywhere to Sarasota Ford, where 41 meets 301. SarasotaFord.com.
We are talking about the U.S. Senate race and Marco Rubio's re-entry into Florida politics. And Jeffrey, let me continue with you. And I know that the latest polls show that Marco Rubio is up about 7 points.
7 points over Murphy and 8 points over Grayson at the moment.
But could there be any hangover effect from the presidential primary where Donald Trump...
If you, I took a look at the polls, and I am a firm believer in looking at the broad sweep of the polls and not any given sample. And I saw that 2 days ago, when they were polling this, he was up by 2%. He being Rubio, and I think this is a bump because he announced that he's gotten a lot of press coverage. But I think he's going to have a tough primary with Carlos Baruf, and I think he's running in a bad year. For a Republican in a state like Florida. So
Rod, you're connected to the Republican political establishment here. Does he have a lot of the fence mending to do?
In the Republican Party here in Sarasota? I don't think so. Not in Sarasota, Manatee. With Rubio, yeah, there's some fence mending there. I think because there were some issues there. I mean, there are a lot of people here for Jeb, actually. And the fact that, as was stated earlier, Rubio has this reputation for being a bit aloof from the state of Florida and all, that is probably his weakest point in, frankly, running a Democrat campaign against him. That would be his weakest point. But I think he can get that done because he's so attractive on so many other levels that the weaknesses he has are not major weaknesses.
Frank?
And I wouldn't rule out Carlos Baruf just yet. I mean, yeah, let's just remember that it's been no secret that Carlos is running as a second coming of Donald Trump, and Trump crushed Marco Rubio. I mean, almost 2-1 in this state. And so with the field is now cleared. The governor of the state just gave him the nod. He's not endorsing Rubio. That's pretty much a default endorsement for Carlos Baruf. With that, you know, if that replays, yeah, I mean, it's possible for Rubio to lose again twice.
That's a good point, by the way, because this is a Republican primary electorate. Again, we're not talking about the general electorate. Rubio is going to have to face an entirely different electorate in November. But the electorate in August is very similar to the one that in the presidential primary.
If
so
Carlos
I wouldn't rule out Baruf either.
Close, I mean, he can self-finance. He's going to have to get it. But if he presents himself as the Florida version of Trump.
Nobody in Jacksonville or Miami has any idea who this Baruf guy is, and they all know who Rubio is.
Actually, he has been spending a great deal of money in those markets.
But you saw that last poll. He was at 5%. And his name recognition was either 13 or 17% name recognition.
But in what was a crowded Republican field,
right. So he's got a couple months to catch up with a presidential contender.
Let's talk about the Democratic side of things for a while. The polls between Patrick Murphy and Alan Grayson have been tight over the long haul, but it's been really no secret that the Democratic Party has had its thumb on the scale. You had President Obama and the Vice President endorsing Patrick Murphy. And just this week, Patrick Murphy was the subject of a pretty serious investigative report out of CBS in Miami, where they questioned his professional resume, showing that he, despite what he said, really did not work as a CPA, did not get dual degrees from the University of Miami. It looks like he's on the defensive right now. And, you know, Jeffrey, does Alan Grayson have any real shot?
Yes, I think he does. The Democratic Party has been, for a variety of circumstances, has been inching to the left. And I think Alan Grayson on the left wing of the Democratic Party of Florida has a significant constituency. And Murphy's issues, and I did see that report in Miami, but there's also a lot of people who are upset with him for his opposition to All Aboard Florida for financial reasons. I think that he is not a shoo-in.
You know, I remember seeing Alan Grayson say or boast that progressives in Florida would walk over hot coals to vote for him. You know, on the other hand, you've had Harry Reid, the Democratic minority leader in Washington, basically say to him at a Democratic meeting, "I want you to lose."
Yeah. This is a rerun. In some respects, it's different than the Bernie and Hillary race, but the establishment has lined up on behalf of Murphy. He's been raising an obscene amount of money. They view him as probably the best matchup in a general election. Grayson has a lot of progressive support. I don't think Democratic voters have totally tuned in just yet, and so I do think this is going to be a close race. And I think, you know, we'll know as we get closer. Maybe we won't know to Election Day, but I agree with Jeff. Yeah, Alan Grayson has a chance.
You're talking about a primary here, and again, I emphasize that the
primary
primary electorate
in the middle of August,
is different.
where voter turnout is not going to be high.
And a committed group of progressives can have an exaggerated impact in an electoral turnout like that.
I would be very surprised if the Democrat Party primary voters in Florida elected somebody who is so far left in Alan Grayson and who has said some explosive things in the past.
As we have seen in this election cycle, what the party wants doesn't necessarily mean what the party gets, if you look at the Republican side.
Right, but in the Democrat side, it does mean that.
Democratic. Thank you.
Capital D.
Well, the other thing about that is that what are the chances in terms of the Democrats retaking the seat? The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee already booked $10 million worth of ads coming in the fall. One way or the other, I would expect this is going to be a pretty competitive race.
I think it's going to be played out between the 48 and the 52-yard line. I think it'll be very close, but the Democrats have a very good chance.
I was going to say 51-49.
And Rod, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, it's going to be close because it's Florida, but I think Rubio completely changes the scenario.
But what impact does the presidential race have on that? Because it is going to be very close there.
Well, you saw what Rubio's statement was. I mean, he said he had to run because he had to be a stop on Clinton, and he wasn't all that comfortable with Trump. So he is clearly separating himself from both in running in Florida.
And that will have to be the last word. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
On the Suncoast.
And across America, the news you care about
is on your Suncoast News at 5.
And ABC World News Tonight at 6:30.
People you trust. Scott Dennis, Haley Wilkes, David Muir.
First, the Suncoast.
And then the world.
Did you know? When your dog stays at Canine Corral, the play is free? Contact Canine Corral today about boarding and daycare packages. Canine Corral, where the love is.
US Med has great news for anyone living with diabetes.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, US Med will ship a new glucose meter right to your home.
And shipping is free.
My new meter uses only a speck of blood, so it's less painful than my previous meter.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, you're covered with US Med. We're welcoming new patients, even if your current provider can't supply you anymore.
I don't even have to test on my fingers anymore. I can test on my hand or forearms, and it's more accurate than my old meter.
So call US Med today, and you'll have a choice of 2 great meters.
One that actually speaks your results, or a meter so small it fits on the bottle of strips.
Act now, and US Med will include a free prescription discount card. We'll also send you a free diabetes cookbook. This is your opportunity.
So call US Med today.
You'll be glad you did.
That's Chuck, proud homeowner, regular do-it-yourselfer. Today he's attempting an electrical repair. This is Pablo. He's an electrician with Mr. Sparky. How's he doing, Pablo?
Terrible, Mike.
Yeah. What Chuck doesn't realize is that almost 68,000 home fires are caused every year by electrical problems.
What?
If he doesn't have the proper tools and training, he's liable to start the next one.
Little help here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Call 888-8-SPARKY.
You might want to write that number down.
I'm Dale Mast, and we're celebrating 40 years on the west coast of Florida.
It's our 40th anniversary, and it's time for a celebration, the Culligan Hydration Celebration. For a limited time, celebrate by taking $250 off any Culligan home system. That's $250 off Culligan water softener systems, drinking water systems, or whole house water filters. Help us celebrate our 40th anniversary, and remember,
for better water, pure and simple, call today and say,
"Hey, Culligan man."
Welcome back, everyone. On ABC7's Facebook page, we told you about Governor Rick Scott's decision to place 49 state flags around the state capitol in honor of the Orlando shooting victims. Ellen Klein-Posa says this was an awesome thing to do. Support the community. A hate crime is a hate crime, no matter what your personal feelings. But Kathy Shoemaker says should have done this a lot sooner than now. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news at 7. And that is all the time we have for this evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alan Cohn. Good night.